Hi there, I'm Charlotte DeMolay, artist and creative soul lifer. And today we're going to be doing a little bit of creative living and making fairy houses. This is one I made in a little class with some ladies in my garden club, and I just absolutely fell in love with doing this. So we're going to make one together, and I have a feeling I'm going to be making a lot of these. This is actually in two pieces. At some point, I'll cement this down, but I'm going to do something kind of weird to this at some point because my husband wants it in his aquarium, not my garden. But as you can see, it is basically concrete with different things put inside. All right, so what's the base? This one's obviously a bowl. This was a jar, baby food jar, I believe, maybe yogurt jar, and had another little glass on top. So when you're first planning out your fairy house, the first step is the base. So let's talk about these supplies. I have been going to thrift shops. That's one of the things I'm trying to do with the fairy house is not go to the craft store and just buy new things. So I'm visiting thrift shops. I rated my own crafts and jewelry making supplies, things I've had around, because if you live any sort of creative, craftsy artist life, you get piles of stuff. You know this. So these are some bowls. When I was thinking about the top of it, I got some different bowls at the craft store. This is a bowl I actually had. This is from my mother-in-law. I've had this forever. It was part of kind of a Lazy Susan set for dips and stuff, and it broke during one of my moves. And I was going to break it up for mosaics, but honestly, I think it'd be just fine as a fairy house lid. I'm not sure where this piece came from. Maybe I threw it away because it doesn't go to this bowl. But again, this was chipped. I was going to bust it up. Great fairy house. So for the bottoms, you can use so many different things. And if you start doing this, you will start looking at things very differently. I finished an orange juice. I was like, oh my gosh, that could be a fairy house base. Let me check this out. Boom. Washed it out, peeled off the stickers. Fairy house base. Old Spice jar. Oops. Fairy house base. This was a little jelly glass at Costco. Some like tiramisu desserts came in. So now I have 6 little jelly glasses, juice glasses, whatever, that I don't really need. So again, that can become a fairy house. So as you can see, it can be plastic, it can be glass, empty peanut container. Because you want to kind of think about the size of your top and the size of your base. You know, that's a great one. And the cool thing about plastic is when we get to talking about doorways and stuff, you can actually cut into plastic and do some neat things with it. So plastic or glass, it doesn't matter. It's basically just a form for the concrete. So concrete. I want to make sure I'm keeping the view clear, so I keep trying to move things out of the way. The concrete can be gotten, this was bought, I believe, at Lowe's. It is ready mix concrete. Make sure you get yellow with the red lid. It is just basically wet concrete. It talks about stirring it up, and we'll kind of do that as we go along. You can also, when you know you're going to use it, if you've been storing it like this, flip it upside down. Just make sure whatever it's on, in case there is any sort of moisture leakage or anything like that, that you've got, you know, you're not putting it on your best wood cabinet or something. So some other supplies that you'll want to have are some sort of surface to work on. This is one of my craft tables, so I'm not covering the surface, but normally you probably would. Some sort of, you want a paper plate or something to work on because you want to be able to move these and let them dry. And it is so much easier to pick this up and move it around, picking this up and move it around when it's wet, instead of picking these up when they're wet. So some sort of paper plate or tray to work on. Your concrete patch, you will need a container of water, a cup, or something like that. And because you don't want to be working straight out of this, it can dry up pretty quick. You want some other little bowl or cup to spoon some of the concrete patch into. I'm just using little like takeout containers. I got a bunch of these on Amazon for freezing broth and soup. And, or like I said, use a paper cup, plastic cup, because really it's easier to throw it away at the end. I know that's kind of wasteful, but trying to, what do you want to be washing concrete mix down your drain? So if you do something that you want to reuse the container, not throw it out, make sure you're washing this outside in your yard, away from plants and stuff. Do not wash this stuff, any of this residue down your drain. So once you have your base supplies, then is the fun stuff, all the decorations. And that's where the sky is the limit. One popular thing are glass beads, all different colors. Those are great fillers. Any sort of like trinkets and stuff, stones, shells, keys, seashells. I live in Florida, so guess what I have an abundance of is seashells. And let's move all this over. I started a little box where I was accumulating all my doodads and everything. I have stones. I have some pieces left over from a mosaic project, buttons, broken bits of jewelry. That's fantastic. Beads. These are things that I had bought previously. I used to do some jewelry making. I haven't done it in years. So I raided my jewelry making supplies and just kind of pulled all these out. Again, beads from broken necklaces. These are charms. Remember when the wine glass charms were all the rage and stuff, or putting it in your scrapbooks. So I've got one little selection here that has things with words on it. Um, Glass tile. I'm not going to do that this time, but I did get a glass cutter because, again, I want to work with mosaics as well. But you could cut pieces of tile, pieces of glass tile, and use that in it. Big charms and pieces. These add some really great accent pieces. So again, sky's the limit. If you want a little more natural look, I went out today in a break in the rain and got a stick. I'm going to cut some of these up and make a more natural looking one with just, yes, plain sticks. I also have some moss, and there's all different, you can get all kinds of different types of moss, whether it's the stringy, the fluffy, more of kind of a sheet moss. These were bought at Michael's for a project. I'm not sure how it'd be to like go in your yard and get moss. I have Spanish moss all in my trees. Maybe I'll clean some of that off and do that in the future. That'd be kind of cool to have some that I'm just scavenging totally out of my yard. That'd be a cool fairy house. So again, sky's the limit on the things that you add to it. And some popsicle sticks or something to help stir up and scoop out your paste. And toothpicks. Toothpicks are really good for kind of sticking the things down in the concrete. And I suggest when you get started, first thing to do is pick your base and your top, and then get an idea, kind of plan out what it is you want. So I'm actually making one for one of my daughters. Her birthday's coming up, and I was chatting with her last night, and she's like, I was telling her I was going to be filming this today. She's like, "Ooh, that's what I want for my birthday, a fairy house." I'm like, "Okay, it's going to be late, and you're probably going to see it being made on social media," but she was okay with that. She's a big TikToker. She's got huge following and stuff, so she understood. So I put together. This plate is one that I've got put together. I'm going to do with hers. I'm doing it kind of an Imagine Dream sort of theme. She's also a little blingy and bougie, so I picked some of my sparkly jewelry pieces. She loves pearls, so this is a necklace that broke. So I'm going to take it apart and use this in it. Oh, that's another thing I recommend you have is some sort of pliers to take apart pieces if you've got jewelry pieces. This piece had a little loop on top. In fact, I had another word, and I snapped it, and I snapped a chunk out of it. So when I cut this piece off, I used a pair of snippers. But pliers are helpful, and scissors are helpful if you're taking apart pieces as you're doing it. So I have this one planned. Going to figure out the base, put the camera down where you're seeing my hands more, and then we'll get started making the fairy house. Okay, right away, I'm going to start with an issue. I want to use this top and this base, but that is so low you're not going to be able to see much. So you can doctor it up a little. I have the lid from Ooh, that's even better. Okay, I was going to use the lid from the peanut container, but instead I'm going to use the lid from the orange juiced jar. Um, a really good one to use is the E6000 adhesive, but I went to grab my tube and it's all dried up, which is a shocker here in Florida with humidity. So instead, I'm just going to use some super glue, hope for the best. And really, this is the kind of thing you want to figure out before you get started, but it is what it is. Yeah, that's not even hitting that. Okay. See, when you're crafting with Charlotte, you just live and learn. It'd probably help if I had my glasses on. I can see what I'm doing. Oh, yeah. I'm using this whole thing of super glue because it's a little bit indented in the lid and I put it in the wrong spot on the bottom there. But I opened the super glue just the other day, and you know these things like dry up very shortly after opening, so I'm not the least bit worried about using it all. I just don't want to get it on my fingers because I'd like to have functionality in my fingers for the rest of the day. Okay, let's hold that down. While we let that dry, let's talk about, okay, great. Now I feel like I have super glue all over me. Well, if my hair sticks to my face, you'll know why. It's very rainy here today in Florida, so the humidity's high. So hopefully this will work. Also, by concreting over it, it'll also give it some adhesive on here. Let's talk about doorways. If you're using a plastic container, like I said, you can take scissors and cut a doorway out. Why a doorway? Because your fairies have to have a way to get into their house. So this is glass. I can't cut the doorway out of this. So instead, I'm going to make one. So let's get set up. I'm going to spoon some of this stuff in here. Just spoon out what you think you can work with in about 10 minutes or so. And if you know you've got to step away for any reason, cover it up with a damp paper towel or rag. That's the other thing I have on hand is I have a wet rag to wipe my hands on. I have a dry rag if I need it. I have my supplies. I've got my base, got my lid. And let's get to going. So first step, I'll start with this, but I quickly devolve into using my fingers because that's just how I roll. Kind of pat it out and get a smooth thing. I'm going to start with my doorway, which I already picked out is these two cute little buttons. And then I'm surrounding my doorway. So you put the concrete on, you push the item down into it. And this is kind of why you need a rag nearby. Your hands get dirty, and yes, whatever gets on here will dry on there, which is okay. I mean, these have kind of a rustic look. They're supposed to. I'm lining my doorway with these little beads. And I'll hush so I can speed this up. A couple of things I want to point out before I just put on some nice relaxing music while we're making this is you can use water to kind of smooth down the surface of the concrete. And I also use water in the rag to kind of clean off the surface as well. And as you work, you're going to mess it up because you're trying to grab this thing and rotate it and turn it. And that's okay. It takes a little while to dry. So as you bump things and move things, yes, that fell off. It will not stay on. I've tried a couple of things. You'll see it just kind of fall off there towards the end and it's fine. Once I get to the point I'm up to that spot, then the concrete holds it in. So anyway, if you bump it at the bottom, and mess things up, or you grab it and your fingers mess things up, you can just put things right back into place. It will also sort of smush down as you're working, and you can just take it, sort of cup it, and put everything back into place. It's very forgiving. Like I said, it takes a while to dry, and especially I'm working outside and it's raining, so the humidity's high. I ended up having to bring these inside that they would dry within the same day. But you've got a lot of time to work with it. If you knock something off, you smudge something, just give yourself time with it, give yourself some grace, and fix it. The big thing is just to relax and enjoy the process. Okay, next step is to attach the top to the bottom once everything's fully dry. This was that juice lid that I had inverted, and as you can see, the concrete holds it in just fine, even though the glue I was using didn't. And because I kind of have a cavity here, I was trying to do it precisely. It didn't work. I ended up blobbing it in there. This is the last step. You use the concrete and kind of a blob or piece of it on top of whatever the lid of your base is, and then put your topper on there. And now you have a fairy house. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more creative soul living.